Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings in my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, is to provide you information the bought-off, lamestream, fake media tentacle of the deep state will not provide. Our goal is for you to reclaim your freedoms from the oppression from the deep state and the globalist syndicate. The radio show airs live every Sunday from the People's Republic of Ann Arbor on Wham Talk 1600. It's easy to access. All you have to do is go to davejanda.com. We're there every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern for the radio show. Hit Listen Live. It'll connect you to Wham Talk 1600 streaming service. Hit play and you're with us. Great guests, great analysis. In addition, we're available on this YouTube channel, Operation Freedom, and we're available at davejanda.com 24/7. On davejanda.com, we have the free, the public side, and the subscription side. The subscription side has extra shows, extra content, extra analysis, and the archives in the podcast to every show and every one of our broadcasts. I believe it's the biggest bang for the buck in all the internet. I hope you'll become part of our freedom family. The title of today's presentation is Reclaim Your Freedom and Cancel the Globalist Oppression. Reclaim your freedom. It's based on, remember the Barr hearing, and we'll get to that in a minute, that these petulant, condescending jerks, every time Attorney General Barr tried to answer a question of the deep state players, they'd be screaming, I reclaim my time, I reclaim my time, blocking Attorney General Barr from answering. Well, it's about time all of us reclaimed our freedoms. And that involves sacrifice from each and every one of us. We cannot rely on one person or two people or three or four people to get the job done. It's going to take a mass effort. You and me and everyone we know. It's not just up to Donald Trump or A.G. Barr or General Michael Flynn or Sidney Powell to deliver all the goods. It's up to each and every one of us. You know, a couple weeks ago, I presented to you an op-ed, a letter, that General Michael Flynn wrote to all of us, to every American, to every person who values freedom, not just in our country, but around the world. The op-ed that he wrote was entitled, If We Don't Act, 2% of the people are about to control the other 98%. I'm not going to read the entire op-ed to you as I did several weeks ago because no one, including Fox, by the way, controlled opposition, no one in the bought-off lamestream fake media read a portion of it, let alone the entirety of it. It was a masterpiece for freedom. But I want to touch on a couple of the points that General Flynn made in that op-ed and what he said, because it is all about you reclaiming your freedom. Here's what he said. I was once told if we weren't not careful, 2% of the passionate will control 98% of the indifferent 100% of the time. The more I've thought about this phrase, the more I believe it. There is now a small group of passionate people working hard to destroy our American way of life. Treason and treachery are rampant in our rule of law, and those law enforcement professionals who uphold our laws are under the gun more than any other time in our nation's history. These passionate 2% appear to be winning. Despite there being countless good people trying to come to grips with everything else on their plates, our silent majority, the indifferent, can no longer be silent. Another highlight. Don't fret. Through smart, positive actions of resolute citizen patriots, it's all of us, we can prevail. Always keep in mind that our enemy, these dark forces, invariably have difficulties of which we are ignorant. For most Americans, these forces appear to be strong. I sense they are desperate. I also sense that only a slight push on our part is all that is required to defeat these forces. How should that push come? General Flynn went on, seek the truth. Fight for it in everything that is displayed before you. Don't trust the fake news or false prophets. Trust your instincts and your common sense. Those with a conscience know the difference between right and wrong, and those with courage will always choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Very profound words. He went on to say that we have to fall back on what got us here. We cannot afford to lose our God-given human rights and the strong inner desire for freedom to choose and to breathe the fresh air of liberty. We must stand up and speak out to challenge our so-called leaders of government. We put them in charge, we can remove them as well. We must not allow a small percentage of the powerful to overtake our position on America's battlefield. We, as free-thinking and acting individuals, must control how we will live and not allow a few passionate others to change our way of life. To the silent and currently indifferent majority, wake up. America is at risk of being lost in the dustbin of history to socialism. The very heart and soul of America is at stake. In war as in life, most failure comes from inaction. We face a pivotal moment that can change the course of our nation. That was General Michael Flynn, the highlights of the op-ed he wrote. After I presented his op-ed on our YouTube channel and on my radio show, I received an email from General Flynn. I consider him a friend, and I'd like to read it for you. Dave, thanks for highlighting what I had written. I meant every word of it. These are seriously deadly times across our country, and a real threat to our way of life has never been more clear. A large, well-organized, and funded socialist movement is on the march, and they will not stop on their own accord. God bless, Mike. See, General Flynn is leading by example, as is his phenomenal family, as is his phenomenal attorney, Sidney Powell. They're leading by example. They are and have been taking on the globalist syndicate. Not just for General Flynn's freedom, but for your freedom, my freedom, and every American's freedom, even those who don't support him. He is challenging their oppression. He is doing that on a day-by-day basis, minute-by-minute basis. As you might be aware, General Flynn has had some major victories of late. On May 7th, the Department of Justice, after reviewing the documents in his case, revealed that there was prosecutorial misconduct, that they had actually changed the 302 forms, the forms that were used to try to prosecute General Flynn. It showed that he did not lie, that he was framed, and that he was targeted. On May 7th, the Department of Justice dropped the charges. But, as he mentions, one of the 2% that are deep state zealots, in this case Judge Emmett Sullivan, did not follow through on his constitutional duties. Rather than dismissing the case, he decided to become not just the judge, but bring a biased buddy of his in to try to prosecute on their own General Flynn. This is beyond unconstitutional. But rather than sit there and take it, General Flynn and his family and Sidney Powell did what many thought was the impossible. They filed what is called a writ of mandamus, which says that the judge is out of line, that this is judicial misconduct. And they took it to the D.C. Court of Appeals. And in a 2-1 decision, they ruled in his favor. But then, Judge Sullivan, being the deep state puppet that he is, obviously controlled. Obviously that there is something in his or his family's background that is leading to this off the radar screen, off the charts behavior on his part. He he went back to the D.C. Court of Appeals and said, well, I lost that, okay, in the 2-1 decision, but I want everyone on the D.C. Court of Appeals, 11 judges, to hear it. And they recently decided that, okay, we'll all hear it. From the Department of Justice, who was presenting on behalf of General Flynn, and Sidney Powell, his attorney, about how this is so off the charts. The Department of Justice, the two parties in the case, the Department of Justice and General Flynn himself, say, case is done. It's over. It's dismissed. Never in our country's history has a judge in turn also become the prosecutor. And that's what Judge Emmett Sullivan is trying to do. Many people believe that that's a sign of how powerful the globalist syndicate is and the deep state. No. I believe it shows how desperate they are. So on August 11th, Sidney Powell and the Department of Justice and whoever represents Sullivan, because he can't speak for his own, he's kind of Joe Biden-esque. Kind of hides in the basement and lets other people do his dirty work for him. They're going to present the case. The problem is that one of the judges already recused himself, a Trump appointee, because he said he was in the Trump White House when that happened. Okay. But there are 4 Obama appointees on that. As we have thoroughly outlined on our platform on numerous occasions, the method in which General Flynn was surveilled, as was Donald Trump, as were judges, as were thousands of American citizens, the manner in which all those individuals were illegally surveilled through the Obama administration was through Obama, Brennan, and Clapper that commandeered a surveillance platform called the Hammer for their own personal use. This has been well documented by Admiral Ace Lyons, General Tom McInerney, investigative journalist Mary Fanning, Alan Jones, and the 2 most brilliant surveillance platform experts in the world, Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe. The acting director of National Intelligence, Rick Grinnell, on his way out the door, declassified the transcripts. And when he did that, the transcripts of the phone call that General Flynn was being essentially prosecuted for and, quote, lying about, of which he didn't lie about, the phone call between him and a Russian ambassador, Kislyak, during the transition period after President Trump had been elected. A commonplace occurrence that occurs in every transition. Grinnell said, well, we don't have all the transcripts of that phone call because, quote, it was not a work product of our intelligence community, end quote. Our intelligence community are 17 agencies, including the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, the DIA. Well, if it wasn't a work product of our intelligence community, what was it? It was the work product of illegal surveillance by a parallel platform called the Hammer, implemented by Obama, Brennan, Clapper, and Comey. So if the one Trump judge is going to recuse himself because he was in the White House when some of this stuff went down, then the 4 Obama appointees surely should also recuse themselves, since this information was garnered illegally in the Obama White House. You want to take a bet if those 4 will recuse themselves? I believe the chance of that, although it should be 100%, is probably closer to 0. In spite of those odds, General Flynn, the Flynn family, Sidney Powell, and the Department of Justice fight on. Why? Because they're reclaiming not just General Flynn's freedom, they're reclaiming your freedom. Every day that this goes on, however painful it is, horribly painful for General Flynn and his family and Sidney Powell, they're not backing down, because the more they keep this going, much to the globalist syndicates, deep states' chagrin, the longer this goes on, the more people become awakened. And the more people start to lash out at the deep state. The more people who start to speak amongst themselves. Because they say, wait a minute, if the deep state can do this to an American hero, a 3-star general, a very prominent individual, what can they do to me? What can they do to my family?